Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks. It's Tracy here, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make my placemats and some tips because you'll need them along the way. So if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and hopefully you'll be informed when new videos pop up. So this is a beginner friendly tutorial, but there are some tricky parts, so I will go into those. But I'm using this Chainy cotton cake yarn, which I did buy just to sell in my shop, but once I started to kind of get used to it, there was a few colours that I absolutely fell in love with, and this being one of them. So I wanted to make a sturdy placemat, and I do intend to use a little bit of starch to stiffen them up even more, even though they are fairly stiff anyway. The beauty of this stuff is it's quite durable and hard wearing, and it's the retwist, so it's recycled, and it's the Chainy cotton cakes. So they kind of don't show you whether they're an Aran weight or a chunky weight. They don't tell you anything about that. The strand, I guess, if it was yarn, you would say could be a DK weight or an Aran weight. I've seen both kind of in that thickness, but it is more like, if you like, it feels like a little rope. So it is very, very sturdy. And what I really love are the way these colours ombre. So I decided to manipulate these colours in my placemat so that I would start and it would look just like this does. So it replicates it. Starting with the blue and then going out. So I have a bag of offcuts because I've made 2 of them so far. Now I would say if you want to average 1 per cake, you do get lots and lots of offcuts, but there are some colours like this yellow that there is not much of, and I've chosen to do 2 rows of the yellow, and it really depletes what is on this cake, because by the time you get round to this part, it does take more to get round. Okay, so I've used a 4.5mm crochet hook. You'll need some darning needles and scissor, and I'll be back in a sec once I've cleared the decks, and I'll show you how to get started with this. Okay, so it is nice and easy to do a centre pull, and that's exactly what I've done with the other cake. And to start with, you'll need a nice tail, because when you're sewing in the ends, as this is really stiff and sturdy stuff, you do need a nice tail to actually get that sewn in. So I'm going to make a magic loop, and the way I do it, if you haven't seen it already, and I've done lots of videos and shorts about it, is I just make a loop, I pop my hook in, and I bring the yarn through the hoop and make 1 chain. I've pulled it too tight. There we go. Make 1 chain and you've done it. There you are. That's your magic loop. So I don't, as of this, I wanted it nice and tight. I'll just show you this one and bring it in. I didn't want lots of holes, and I wanted it nice and tight. So this is a half treble crochet in the UK or a half double in the US. So I don't need any more chains. In fact, I don't want that one confusing the issue. So I cinch it down just a little bit, and into this loop, working over that tail, I'm going to do a half treble, which is a half double in the US, and you yarn over, go into the loop, yarn over, pull up your loop, yarn over, and then you pull through all 3 loops on your hook. And I haven't got my glasses with me, so I'm going to have to go and pause it in a sec and do that. So in this ring, you want 10 of those. Now that chain doesn't count as a stitch, so we're going to do 10. So we need to make sure that afterwards you've got the right amount of stitches. Now, because you're using a 4.5mm hook, and this is very sturdy yarn, it will be stiff. It is a little hard on your hands to work with it. You don't really feel it until you get to the end of the second one. Well, I didn't. And if you want to, you can pull on this just to close it off a little bit, but don't forget you're working over that tail. Don't let it slip out. And you need to carry on until you've got 10. So I'm going to pause it and I'll come back to you once I've got the full 10 and I'll have my glasses. It won't be a second. Okay, so I'm back now and I know I've counted that I've done 8. And if you ever get confused, ignoring this loop, you can count back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's the chain, and this is your first stitch. So let's get the tail back. That means I need to do another 2 because, as I said before, I wanted 10 into that ring. Now I have put the light on and hopefully it won't be too shadowy, but I've noticed today the blazing sunshine that we did have has deserted us, so I did want it to sort of be as visible as possible. So that's my 10. Okay, so just as I said before, you can count back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that is where I'm going to slip stitch into. So if you do get confused, that is how you can figure it out. So as it's quite tight, it doesn't like to go in on camera. There we go. So I'm going to slip stitch into that to form my ring. Okay, now I'm going to pull on this. It doesn't have to be tight yet because we're not there by any means. Now for my centerpiece, I did 4 rows in the blue, and this is just as simple as doing any, at this stage, as doing any circle. But by the time you get to the yellow part, things do change. So I recommend that you don't just go off and think that's it, I don't need to watch anymore, because I think you do. So I'm going to chain 1 and cinch it down because I don't want to confuse it as a stitch. And in each of my stitches round, I'm going to do 2. So by the end of this, I should have 20 stitches. And the first ones are always the hardest to get into. It's much easier when you're not sitting like this, when you've not got a camera in front of you. But yeah, you just go in and do 2 in every single one. So you started with 10 and you'll end with 20. So that's quite simple and straightforward. Once again, then I'm going to pause it and I will come back to you when I get back to the start. Okay, so I'm all the way back round and I'm just going to insert into my first stitch just as before to make my ring. So this is what it's looking like, and don't worry about that center. You just need to give it a good tug and it will close up. There will be no hole. Okay, so this next round we're going to, as I said, for the first 4 of, well, however many, until we change color, we're just going to do this as we would any circle. But because it is quite stiff and sturdy, you do need to kind of manipulate it a little bit differently. So normally speaking now, what we would do is do an increase in the first stitch and then a single one, then an increase and then a single, then an increase and a single, and go all the way around. So we're adding 10 to our tally. But if you're going to do an increase at the first stitch, it can make it a little bulky and hard to get into. So for this particular round, I'm going to start without the increase, but I do like to alternate. So if I start on the single stitch on this round, I like to do the increase as my first stitch on the next. But as I say, it gets a bit bulky. So at the beginning of the next round, I will show you how I overcome that. Just in case you feel like racing ahead, you might want to see that. So for now, all I'm doing is increasing in one stitch, and then in the next one, I'm doing a single one. And then I'm increasing in the next stitch, and then in the next stitch, one on its own. And that's what I'm going to do all the way around until I get back to the start. Now, because I started with a single, I will end with an increase. So I'm going to pause it and I'll catch up with you when I get back to that last increase. Okay, so I've made it all the way around and I'm just going to slip stitch into my first stitch to finish. Okay, so this is the last of the blue round, and for the next one we have an increase and 2 on their own. So as I said to you, I normally alternate starting with the double, the increase, and then the next round I don't. But that's with normal yarn. This is a little bit bulkier and stiffer, so I'm not going to do that. But I don't want it to take on a hexagonal shape, which is what it does if you increase in the same stitches all the time. So for this particular one, I'm going to do my first stitch as a single one, and then I'm going to increase. And then I'm going to do a single one. Now that is the same amount of stitches I would have had at the start had I done an increase and 2 on their own. So I just made sure it was the second stitch that I did my increase into instead. So I did a single, an increase, and a single. Okay, so I've finished that particular section. So now I'm going to start the repeat, which will be an increase in the next stitch, and then 2 on their own. And then an increase. And just 2 on their own. And that's what I'm going to do all the way round. Now this was a row where you start on an increase, even though I pushed it one stitch further along. So you will end on a single, on one on its own, because this is the round that would have started with an increase. So I'm going to pause it now, and I'm going to continue to do an increase and 2 on their own all the way around until I get to my last 2 on their own. Okay, so I've made it all the way around, and I'm going to slip stitch into my first stitch. You may have to pull that stitch out a little bit just to get it out. Now I'm going to end this colour. I'm going to snip off. It's very tough, this yarn. It doesn't like to snip even. And I'm going to do 1 chain, cinch it down, and really pull that down. And that is the last of that colour. Now it doesn't matter if it starts to cup up a little bit, because this is really stiff and sturdy yarn. You can manipulate it quite a bit. So now I need to manipulate the colour. Now what I'm going to do is pull out until my colour changes. So I'm just going to make a little ball of this blue. Shouldn't be too far into it before it changes, I don't think. I think we've most of the blue. But I'm going to pause it for now anyway, because this might be a little boring. And once my colour changes, I'll come back to you. Okay, so I'm almost there. And this is the size of the little ball that I have. And I want to show you how you can tell. There you go. You can just see the yarn has changed colour. And what I really like about this yarn is the colour changes are really, really precise. So I'm going to snip that off and put that with my little ball of oddments. And I'm going to join this colour, which is, it's kind of just got some green in it. So you can see the colour has changed. Just a little word. Now, all of these cakes have very similar colour changes, regardless of the colour. So you can do this with any one of them. But I really liked the way this looked. And usually when you make something, you can't replicate that on a project, but with this you can. So I would just like to tell you that at the moment in my shop, hobbyrocks.co.uk, these are on special offer, and there is a shipping voucher also underneath the video for qualifying purchases. So there's a link to the shop, and these are on special offer, plus there's that voucher. So now we've got our new colour, I'm going to join it, but I'm not going to join it where I've ended off, because I don't want to work over 2 tails, making it bulky. Plus I can come over here, and what I want to do is join it where I've had This time round I want to join it where I've had an increase. So maybe before, where am I? If I join there and I go 1, 2, 3, I will be increasing on an increase. So I will do it kind of after, or maybe there, and then I'll do 1, 2, 3. Yep, that's fine. So I'm just going to join it, and I don't normally join yarn this way, but this is kind of hard. It's not the same as yarn, so I'm just going to join it with a double knot, and I'm going to pull it as tight as I possibly can. This is you don't really want joining knots, you know, when you kind of join wool together or yarn together, you can work over those knots. This is different. So I'm going to work over that tail as I go. I'm going to insert my hook and pull that through and do my chain to the left side of the knot, right side of the knot. It's actually its left side, but our right. So now I'm joined, and I'm going to do my first stitch in that same space. I'll pull it up so it clears the knot. There we go. Now I need to do an increase and 3 stitches. So I'm going to do my first 3. There's 1. There's 2. And there is my 3rd. All the time working over the tail as I go. Now it doesn't matter if you get it wrong and you are increasing on an increase. It really doesn't matter for one round. If you did it all the time, it would look like a hexagon. Okay, so there we go. I am doing my increase in that stitch, stopping the tail from coming along with it. Now I'm going to do 3. As soon as I've finished working over this tail, it's going to be a lot easier, because that's part of the problem, is manoeuvring that. There we go. So that's I'm done now. So what I normally like to do is, once I've worked over the tail, is give that a little pull just to make sure it's snug in there. Okay, so now I'm going to do an increase and 3 in every stitch around. So this is my increase, and now I'm going to do 3, and we're going to do this for this colour for another 3 rounds. So we're going to have this blue with the green. Okay, so I'm going to pause it now, carry on doing my increase, then 3 stitches. And like I have said before, because I started on a single, I will finish on an increase, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so now I'm going to slip stitch to join my ring again. And there we go. So now we're going to start with our increase again. So we're going to do exactly the same before, but what I want to tell you is that things will change as we get further up, and the amount of increases that we do will change. So if you go racing ahead, then it will start to bow and look like a big brim hat, where it just goes like a big bumpy surface. So it is worth sticking with this. I know it's annoying, but what you'll need to do is it will change when you get to the yellow part, and we're not going to do 3 rows of each colour, so that's also a reason to stick with it. Okay, so I'm going to do, have I done my chain? No, I'm going to do my chain. I'm going to cinch it down, and I'm going to do 1 in my joining. And then I'm going to do my increase, because remember we're starting with an increase, but I want it to be 1 in. So I've got 1 and I need another 3, because in this round we've got an increase and 4 stitches. So I've done 1 of them, and there is my 2nd, my 3rd and my 4th. And now I'm going to increase and do 4 on their own all the way around. It's only on that first one where we'll do our first of our on their own, then our increase, and we'll change it slightly so that the first stitch is not the increase. It makes it very bulky, and you want it to lay nice and flat, and that's why we're joining in a different way, so that we don't have any unnecessary bumpiness on the back. Okay, so now I'm going to do 4 on their own and increase, 4 on their own and increase all the way around, and I will finish on the 4 on their own. I'll come back to you then. Okay, made it all the way around. Now a little tip for you, if you find it hard to get into that one, then put your hook in and give it a good stretch before you try. That's what I've been doing. So now I've finished my 4, I'm going to slip stitch, nice and easily now, into that one to join my ring. So now I'm going to do my last row of this colour. And as we started with an increase, we're now going to start with our 5 on their own, because we did 4 last round, so it will be 5 this time. So in our first one, I always pull it up nicely so it's not sort of sitting down too far, and we're going to do 5. And then we're going to increase, and that's the repeat this round. 5 on their own, and then an increase, 5 on their own, and then an increase. And I will catch up with you. I'm going to pause it, and I'll catch up with you when we get back to the start. And as we started with the 5 on their own, our last one will be the increase. Okay, made it all the way around, finished on my increase, joining with my slip stitch, and now I'm going to do a chain, cinch it down, cut the yarn, and end off that colour. And here we go, there's the 3 rows of that colour. So now I've got to manipulate my yarn cake again, which, as you can see, it's got a big hole in it now. So you can see through it. It's kind of very sturdy stuff, this. Incidentally, it looks really like I'm struggling to work with it. But when you are on camera, you're holding it in a totally different way. Once you're kind of working with it, it's a lot easier. So I'm going to pause it then while I do this to get my next colour. Okay, so I pulled out quite a bit because there is this kind of khaki colour part, and I wanted specifically this colour as a more drastic colour change. So I've pulled out that part, and now we've got this real different kind of bright green coming through with a very small amount of the kind of bluey khaki colour. So that's the next colour that I'm going to add. Now with all these little offcuts that I have, I did actually have enough more or less to make another one with joins in the yarn, which isn't always ideal, but the only colour that there isn't enough of is the yellow. So unfortunately it did take 1 whole cake per placemat. Unless you were doing ones that didn't have all these bright colours, then it might be easier. So again, we're going to join in a different area so I don't have to work over 2, and we're going to have 6 on their own before we increase. So I'm going to join in the centre of 2 increases. So there's an increase, there's an increase. So I'm just going to join there and pull the yarn through and join exactly the same way as I did before, if I can get hold of it, that is. Okay, and I'm just going to tie it because, like I said before, you don't want any kind of really bulky lumps that's going to give you an uneven kind of placemat. You can either use this as a dinner placemat or underneath the fruit bowl or something like that, and it's equally as good. So I'm going to do 6 now on their own, and then my increase. Pull it up nice on the first one, and then work over the tail, go all the way around, making 6, and then an increase. Of course, once you're changing colour like this, you don't have to worry about whether you started on an increase or not. You're just joining the yarn in between your increases. You know you're not going to clash with them. So that's 4. 5, 6. I want that last little bit to be worked over. Okay, so that's 6. I'm going to do my increase. And then 6. So that's what you've got to do for this round. We're going to do 2 rounds with this colour. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video, and just as we started with singles, we will end with an increase, and I'll see you there. Okay, so I've made it all the way around and joining. So I'm going to do another row on this one, and in my first stitch would be my increase, so I'm going to do 1 on its own. In fact, I'm going to do 2 to get me past that join. Okay, so now I would do 7. So I've already done 2 of them, so I'm doing my increase. And I'm sorry if this is confusing to anyone, but it really is better this way. So I've started with my increase. Forget those 2. This is my increase. So I've done 2. I just need to do another 5. So that's all together with the 2 I did before. That is my 7. So now I'm going to do an increase into the next one. And then I'm going to do 7 on their own. And then my increase. So what I want you to do is to go round and do exactly what I've done. 7, then an increase, 7, then an increase. And I will meet you back when I get to this point here. Okay, so I made it round. Now this is the time to end this colour, and I just want to point out something to you. I deliberately had my increases in the same place, and I just wanted to show you what it would do. You can see we've got this hexagon shape going on, and that was because we increased in the same space. So that's what I wanted to show you. So now I need to manipulate the colour again. So I'm going to just pull out all of this. And we are going to use next the solid green. So obviously your cakes may not be this colour. You may have chosen different yarn cakes. But whichever colour you're choosing as your next one. I'm just going to wind this out. And I'll come back to you once I've done. Okay, so you can see the nice kind of change of colour. What I like about these cakes is to make it gradual, they start introducing the colour and then they bring in the colour. Okay, so now we're going to join again in the centre between our increases. Just as we have done, we are just going to do 1 row for now of this colour, I believe. Let me just say, no, maybe not. Get my finished one in. So this is, we are going to do, where are we here? We're on this one now. We're going to do 2 rows of that colour. And then we're going to end off our yarn. So I will catch up with you, do 2 rows. So keeping in with what we've been doing, the next row we'll do 8 between our increase on this row here, and then on this row we'll do 9 between our increases. So once we've got our next 2 rows of this colour done, I want you to end off and I'll catch up with you. Okay, so now I've finished off, as I said, and got to my next colour, which starts there. So it's becoming more yellow. This is the kind of transition of the yellow colour. Whichever colour scheme you're using, or even if you're making your own stripes, then with a different yarn, then this is a time to change. So this is the last round that is kind of normal in terms of the way we increase. From this moment on, it will change after this round. Excuse me. Because otherwise, I don't know if you can see it, it's starting to buckle just a little bit. So if we continue in the way that we are, it will look like one of those big wavy hat brims. And obviously that's not what you want for a placemat. You want it to be nice and flat and even. It doesn't matter if it cups up just a little bit, because obviously with time and you can always manipulate this. It's very sturdy, good quality kind of Chainy cotton where you can do that. But one thing you don't want to do is create what looks like the old warped album when you were young and if you had vinyls and you left them too much in the sun or too much in the heat and they warped. That's what you don't want, and that's what will happen if you continue. So this is the last of the kind of consistent increase rounds, and for this we're going to do 10 on their own and 1 increase. So I'm going to join my yarn, and you know how to do this by now. So I'm going to pause the video and come back to you when this round is finished, because then we can start with the next. And for this round, you just have one of this kind of dual colour, yellow and green, or whatever colour you've got. And then we're going to go in with the yellow colour for me. And that will be 2 rounds. So I will show you once we get round. I'm going to do 10 on their own and an increase on this round and come back to you once I've done it. Okay, so I've done that round and I've ended off, and now I want the yellow part of my yarn. So I found my start of the yellow. Just going to snip that. Now, if you've got lots of these little ends, I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's not that there's going to be lots of waste, because I will just make coasters, and I'll do this on a much smaller scale and make drinks coasters. So that won't be too much wasted yarn. Okay, so I'm just pulling out a little bit of yarn, and I'm going to join this, and it doesn't matter where I join it, but I don't want to join anywhere near this end. So I'm just going to join it in here, and I'm going to do 2 rows with the yellow because I wanted that nice sunny yellow and pink end. I've got it in the wrong part of the stitch there. That's it. So I'm just going to join it as I have done all the way along. I found that this is the least bulky way to join the yarn with this stuff. Well, there might be others, but this works just as well. So I'm going to join it now and do my 1 chain and cinch it, and I'm going to do my 1 in this first stitch that I've just joined to, and I'm going to do 1 in every single stitch all the way around, no increasing at all. And if you're worried that that will make it start cupping, that's fine, because we're still going to do some increases, but this round we're going to have none, and that will stop that kind of, what would you call it, warped edge that we might get if we continue going round and increasing in every round. So all I'm going to do is 1 in every single stitch, come back, and I'm going to pause the video and I'll meet you when I get back to the start. Okay, I've made it all the way around, and as you can see, it's starting to make it flatter. What was starting to bow is now becoming a lot flatter. This round then, we are going to do 11 on their own and then our increase, and we're going to do that all the way around, just as we've been doing that all the way through. But we're going to do 11 on their own, 1 increase. I'm going to pause the video to do that, and I'll come back to you when I get back to the start. Okay, so I've got all the way around, and I'm just at this moment winding the yarn to try and get my next colour, which is a 2-tone and here it is. Again, it's a two-tone to go in. We always have a two-tone, and then we go into a colour. So unfortunately, this is all that's left of the yellow, but it will be okay if I make some coasters. There'll be enough to maybe go around a small row. Okay, so I'm going to end that colour just as I have done before, and it doesn't matter where I join this time again. So I'm going to just join there. I only want to work over one tail at a time. Okay, bringing my yarn in and bring this colour in. I really do love this Chainy cotton. It's hard on the hands, I will say. If you are going to make quite a few, I'd have a break in between. This last few days, this is the third one I've made, and I have to say my fingers are aching a little bit. So I think it's advisable to do if you haven't got to do them in a hurry, to do a couple maybe, and then give yourself a little rest from it before you carry on. So with this round, just like the first yellow row, I'm going to go in every stitch all the way around, doing the just single ones on their own, no increasing at all, just one in every single stitch, working over the tails like I have been. And then at the end of this one, we are going to, well, I am going to change colour again. So I will go all the way around doing my one in each, and I'll come back to you when I get to the start. Incidentally, I'm not really making it, my stitches are not that tight. They're just difficult to do when I'm holding my arms right outstretched and on a camera. But once I get it close to me, it's really not that tight. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way around, and I'll meet up with you when I get back to the start again. Okay, got all the way around, and I've just got to my last of the solid colours, which is this pink one. And I'm going to attach that. And you've probably guessed, this is another increase row. This one will be 11 on their own. We had 10, I believe, on the yellow one. That's right. So this will be 11 and then an increase, 11 then in an increase, and that's what we're going to do all the way around. And I will catch up with you once I get back to the start again. Okay, so my final colour is the outside edge of these Chainy cotton cakes, and I really love the way they end off with this really light dark colour. It kind of brings it back round. Anyway, I'm going to snip off the pink and move that over there, and we're going to end off with our last round. Now at the end, once you get to the end of this round, I will show you how to invisibly hide your end so that you don't get this that you've got to sew in. So if you want that, stick around for the last stitch. Now this one I'm just going to join anywhere, because just like the other alternate rows, this is one where we're going to go in one stitch in every stitch all the way around. So we're not increasing, we're just going to go in every single one and do one all the way around. So I will join my yarn, get started off, and then I will pause it and come back to you at the end so that we can have a look how to do that invisible kind of end off. Okay, so nice and easy, one stitch in every, easier said than done. No, easy all the way around, just one in each, going over the tails. I'll meet back up with you when we get to this stitch, back to the start. Oh. Okay, so I have now got to the end. I haven't joined, and I'm going to show you how to join with an invisible join. I'm going to make a long tail because I have to sew this in. Now I have a bit of a problem in as much as that my needle has a really big fat eye, and the other two are not kind of good enough to get the yarn in very easily. which isn't good for camera. So, what am I doing? You need to pull out this loop, completely pull it out so your stitch is there on the loop. Then we thread the needle. Got carried away with myself then, talking about my big fat eyelet. Okay, so now this is our first stitch. Okay, so what we need to do is, there is the two at the top, and this is this one. It looks a little different because it is the first one. So we're going to go behind it and go through the two loops with our needle. Okay, and now we're going to go behind it like that through just the back loop of this one. And as you can see, it makes it invisible. So now we have to kind of take this down through the stitch so that we can secure it. Okay, so it will go down like that, and the edge looks perfect. And now we can just go through maybe these two stitches here. Okay, go back through the loop that we've created, holding on to this bit of it, and pull it tight, and then it becomes a knot. So it is now secure, and we can weave this through our work to hide the tail. But I find that with this stuff, it can be a little hard to get it and the needle through. So you don't want it to show on this side, so you're doing it on the back, but you just want to weave it through your work to bury that tail. And what I do is I go one way and then I turn and go back the other way, and I'm going through, making sure it's not coming through that side. I'm going through a little bit of the pink row at the bottom as well. So I've gone along quite a way. I can carry on a little bit further, then I will go back on myself and snip it off. So what I want to tell you as well is not to forget this one. And you do exactly the same thing. You threadle your needle and you go through this end and then back through the loop and pull it tight to make a knot. And then it's really difficult to get it into that center one. So you might want to take it through these stitches here just to bury the tail. But make sure you go round a lot or go back and back the other way. Don't forget to do it on the reverse side. It's all sort of sticking out around there anyway. But once that's done, you can't see where your join was. It all looks perfect along that edge. Okay, so thank you for watching. And I hope you enjoy your coasters. And your placemats. I'm going to make some coasters as well. And at some point, I will show you what they look like. Thanks for watching.